The galaxy had been at peace for what seemed like centuries. The invaders, a ruthless and powerful race, had swept through every corner of space. They conquered planets without mercy, and their fleet was unbeatable. Every world that fell to them became part of their ever-growing empire. Their strength was unmatched, and their confidence was unshakable. Earth, a once thriving planet, was forgotten. It had been a distant memory for the conquerors. They had no reason to fear it, no reason to give it a second thought. Earth was seen as weak, its people primitive and scattered. No one believed the humans had anything left that could stand against such overwhelming power. The invaders had destroyed far more advanced civilizations, and Earth was no different in their eyes. "Earth will fall like the others," one of the commanders said, smiling as he studied the holographic map of their conquest. The final target was in sight. Earth's major cities would be wiped out, its defenses shattered. After that, it would be easy to bring the rest of the planet under their control. As the fleet moved closer to Earth, the invaders felt the rush of victory. There was nothing left to stop them. No army could challenge them. The humans had nothing to offer, or so they thought. But on Earth, deep beneath the surface, something was stirring. In secret, deep underground, the last remnants of humanity's once great power were beginning to awaken. Hidden in forgotten bunkers and labs were weapons that had not seen the light of day for centuries. Among them was something incredible, a warship that had been abandoned long ago. It was the most advanced piece of technology humanity had ever created, designed to protect Earth from any threat. It had been hidden away, its existence known only to a few. Over time, the warship had been forgotten, lost to history, but not by everyone. On this day, as the invaders closed in on Earth, the warship's dormant systems flickered to life. It had been activated by an ancient command, a signal that had been waiting to be triggered for generations. The ship's massive engines began to hum, its lights flashing brightly as it slowly powered up. It was a machine of destruction, built to fight and destroy any enemy, no matter how powerful. Above the surface, no one knew what was happening beneath their feet. People were going about their daily lives, unaware that a storm was about to hit. They couldn't have known that, in the depths of Earth, the greatest weapon in human history was waking up. The invaders' fleet continued its march toward Earth, confident in their victory. Their ships were massive, each one a floating fortress capable of destroying anything in its path. Their commanders laughed as they discussed the impending destruction of Earth. The human race had no hope, no power to stop them. But then something strange happened. The ground began to shake. At first, it was barely noticeable, a slight tremor beneath the surface. But then it grew stronger, the vibrations growing in intensity. The invaders' fleet, now in orbit above Earth, detected something unusual. It wasn't a natural earthquake. This was something far more powerful. The invaders' sensors began to beep and flash, warning of an anomaly. "What is that?" one of the fleet's commanders asked, his voice rising in surprise. The rumbling beneath the surface intensified. And then, without warning, the sky was torn apart by a sudden burst of energy. A massive shape shot up from the Earth's surface, rising through the atmosphere with incredible speed. The invaders' fleet was frozen in shock. They had never seen anything like it before. It was a ship, an enormous warship, far larger than any of their own. Its sleek, armored hull shimmered with a dark metallic sheen, and its weapons powered up with a deafening hum. It was a machine of destruction, built to protect Earth and destroy anything that threatened it. The invaders' commanders stared in disbelief. This can't be real," one of them muttered. "It's impossible." But it wasn't impossible. It was happening right in front of their eyes. The human warship was rising, and it was heading straight toward them. "Get ready. All ships, prepare for battle," the fleet commander shouted, his voice full of panic. The invaders scrambled to organize their forces, but it was already too late. The human warship fired its first shots, and the universe trembled. The enemy fleet, so confident just moments ago, now found themselves facing a force they could not comprehend. The human warship was an unknown variable, a weapon from a time long past, and it was more powerful than anything they had ever encountered. The first barrage of energy beams ripped through the invaders' ships with ease, tearing through their shields and cutting through their hulls. The shockwaves from the battle spread across space, reaching every corner of the galaxy. The invaders' mighty fleet, once unstoppable, was now on the retreat. But the humans were not done yet. The warship, with its advanced weapons and near-impenetrable armor, continued its assault, determined to protect Earth at all costs. The invaders had thought victory was certain. They had underestimated Earth, and they had underestimated humanity. The surprise of a lifetime had just begun. As the first explosions lit up the sky, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. No one had ever seen anything like this before. The balance of power had shifted in a single moment. Earth had been awakened, and its fury was unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. The galaxy had never witnessed anything like the moment that had just unfolded. The mighty invader fleet, so sure of their victory just moments ago, was now retreating in disarray. What had started as an operation to crush a forgotten world had turned into an unexpected nightmare. The human warship, having emerged from the depths of Earth, was not only alive, but it was wreaking havoc on their once unbeatable fleet. The invaders scrambled to react. Their ships, built for dominance, were suddenly helpless in the face of a weapon that defied all logic. It was not just any warship. It was humanity's last, best hope, a relic of a forgotten time, now awakening at the worst possible moment for the invaders. On board the warship, the crew was unaware of how they had been awakened. The systems were ancient, but their power was undeniable. The ship hummed with energy as the guns fired with terrifying precision, each shot lighting up the dark vacuum of space. The human warship's shields shimmered as enemy blasts collided with them, but it didn't falter. It was as if the ship itself had been waiting for this moment, eager to defend Earth from the galaxy's cruelest aggressors. "Status report," barked Captain Raymond, his voice full of authority. He had inherited command of this forgotten ship, and now he was its leader in this dire situation. His crew moved quickly, each person focused on their tasks. The ship was older, and many systems were hard to understand, but there was no time for hesitation. "We're holding up well, sir. The shields are holding strong against their fire. The weapon systems are online. We're ready to keep firing," a technician called out from one of the stations. Captain Raymond nodded. "Good. Let's make sure they understand that Earth isn't their playground. Return fire with everything we have, and don't stop until they learn their lesson." Outside, the invader fleet was trying to regroup, but it was clear they were rattled. They had believed that Earth was nothing more than a forgotten, weak planet. Now they faced a warship that was taking down their ships with ease. Their morale was shattered, and they had no idea how to respond to this new threat. "We've never seen anything like this before," one of the invader fleet commanders muttered under his breath. His ships were burning, torn apart by energy beams that should have been impossible. His fleet was too big, too slow, and now it was too late. "Call for reinforcements. We need help now," he ordered desperately. The warship's power was overwhelming, and no matter how many ships they sent at it, the human vessel tore them down one by one. The first battle was over in a matter of moments, and Earth had emerged victorious. The invaders had underestimated the power of a planet they thought had no defense, and now they were paying the price. The human warship was unstoppable, and the galaxy was watching in stunned silence. Back on Earth, people had no idea what was happening above them. They went about their daily lives, unaware that a battle was raging in space. But soon, the news would spread like wildfire. Earth had fought back, and the galaxy was about to learn just how powerful humanity could be. In the heart of the warship, Captain Raymond stood, watching the stars outside the viewport. It wasn't over yet. The invaders were not going to give up so easily. But today, they had made a statement. Earth had teeth, and they would bite if threatened. "Prepare for the next wave," Captain Raymond ordered. This is just the beginning. The battle had just begun, and the warship was ready. What had started as a surprise was now a warning. Earth was not a planet to be ignored. The galaxy would learn the hard way that humanity could be just as ruthless as any other conqueror. The invaders, while licking their wounds, were already planning their next move. They wouldn't back down. But now they had something to fear, a human warship that had just proven to be more than a match for them. As the invader fleet regrouped, a new sense of urgency filled their ranks. They had made a grave mistake, one that would cost them dearly. Earth wasn't the weak planet they thought it was. It was a planet with the power to fight back, and it had just unleashed a fury the galaxy had never seen before. And so, the stage was set for the next part of the battle. The invaders were preparing for retaliation, while humanity was gearing up for the fight of their lives. The stakes were higher than ever, and there was no turning back. The warship's guns powered up again, and Captain Raymond's resolve hardened. It was clear that the invaders would not stop until they had conquered Earth, but the human warship would make sure that never happened. The first battle was only a taste of what was to come, and Earth was ready for more. The stars twinkled coldly in the void of space, but for the invader fleet, it felt like the darkness was closing in. Their first wave had failed, and now their leaders were panicking. The human warship, a relic of a forgotten time, had proven to be a nightmare they had not anticipated. And now, their worst fears were coming true. The humans had not only fought back, but were ready for round two. On the bridge of the human warship, Captain Raymond stared out into space, his face a mask of determination. He had seen the destruction they had caused in the first battle, but he knew this wasn't the end. The invaders were gathering reinforcements, and the fight would only get more dangerous from here. But Earth had one advantage. They were fighting for survival. The invaders had underestimated humanity's strength and resolve, and now they were about to feel the full force of Earth's fury. "Report," Captain Raymond called out, his voice steady but urgent. "The invader fleet is regrouping, sir. They've called in reinforcements, and it looks like they're preparing for another assault." The officer at the communication station replied. Raymond's eyes narrowed. "We'll need to hold them off. Increase shield power and prepare the main cannons. We're not letting them take another step." "Understood, Captain," came the quick reply. The crew moved swiftly to implement his orders, their faces a mix of nerves and determination. Everyone knew what was at stake. The invaders, having suffered significant losses in the first battle, were already making their move. Ships larger than any the humans had ever seen were now emerging from the depths of space, their engines blazing with the promise of an attack. But unlike the first time, they were coming in full force. Hundreds of ships, all bent on vengeance. Their commanders barked orders into their communication systems, their voices filled with frustration and rage. They were determined to crush the human threat. But the more they thought about it, the more they realized that the human warship was unlike anything they had ever encountered. How had they not known about such a weapon? What else was hidden beneath the surface of Earth? "We can't let them get away with this," one of the invader commanders growled. "Prepare for a full assault. This time, we will end this." But the invaders were making a critical mistake. They were too focused on their power and numbers, forgetting one crucial fact. Earth was not going to stand idly by. The warship had already proven its might, and Captain Raymond was more than ready to show them that the humans would not be silenced. As the invader fleet advanced, Captain Raymond's crew worked furiously. The warship's systems were old, but they were being pushed to their limits. Energy was being rerouted, weapons charged, and shields prepared for the oncoming storm. "Ready, Captain," the chief engineer called out, his voice tense. "We're pushing the engines to their maximum capacity. If we can't outrun them, we'll outfight them." Raymond nodded. "That's the spirit. Keep it going. Let's show them that humanity will not fall." And with that, the battle began again. The first shots fired were like thunder in the vast emptiness of space. The human warship unleashed its full arsenal, bright streaks of light shooting from its cannons, striking invader ships with deadly precision. The invaders retaliated, but their weapons seemed almost ineffective against the human warship's shields. It was as though the humans had planned for this moment for years, and now that it had come, they were unstoppable. "Direct hit, Captain. We've taken down 2 of their ships," an officer called out with a mix of disbelief and excitement. Raymond's face tightened into a smile. "Good. Keep them coming. Don't let up." The battle raged on, and it was clear that the invaders were losing. The human warship moved with purpose, each shot landing with deadly accuracy. The invader fleet's ships were no match for the relentless assault. One by one, they fell, their massive forms twisting and breaking apart under the might of Earth's weapon. But the invaders weren't done yet. In their desperation, they unleashed a new weapon, an energy pulse designed to disable the human warship's shields. The pulse hit the warship's defenses, causing a flash of light so bright it momentarily blinded everyone aboard. "Shields down to 30%. The chief engineer shouted, panic rising in his voice. Raymond's face remained calm, though his eyes burned with intensity. "Reroute all power to the shields. We can't afford to lose them now." The crew worked quickly, but the invaders were already closing in, sensing their moment to strike. The human warship had to hold its ground. Failure would mean the destruction of Earth. "We need to finish this now," Raymond muttered under his breath. He knew what had to be done. The warship's engines roared to life as it surged forward, charging into the heart of the invader fleet. The human ship was small in comparison to the massive alien ships, but it moved with the ferocity of a lion defending its territory. The humans weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to send a message. And that message was clear. Earth was not to be trifled with. With a final, devastating strike, the human warship tore through the heart of the invader fleet. Explosions rippled through space as ships were reduced to debris. The enemy fleet, once so confident in its superiority, was now in full retreat. "Report," Raymond barked as the warship slowed, its cannons still smoking from the barrage. "They're retreating, Captain. We've won." Raymond looked out at the stars, his face set in grim determination. "This isn't over, but today, Earth has won." And so, the second battle was over. The galaxy had just witnessed Earth's fury, and it was only the beginning. The silence that followed the battle was deafening. For a few moments, no one aboard the human warship spoke. The wreckage of the invader fleet drifted in space, remnants of once proud ships, now reduced to twisted metal and burning debris. The victory had been hard won, but it was clear that Earth had sent a message that the galaxy would not soon forget. Captain Raymond stood at the helm of the ship, his gaze focused on the endless expanse of space beyond the viewports. He didn't feel the joy of victory. Instead, his mind raced with questions and concerns. The invaders had been powerful, but what if this was only the beginning? What if there were more fleets out there, just waiting for the right moment to strike again? "We won, but at what cost?" Raymond muttered under his breath. Despite the success, the battle had taken a toll. The warship had sustained significant damage, and many of his crew had been injured. The toll of the fight was written in the weary faces of his officers, each of them bearing the weight of their choices. The crew had fought bravely, but it was clear that this conflict wasn't going to be an easy one. "Captain, we've completed a full damage assessment," the chief engineer reported, his voice strained. "Hull integrity is at 70%, and our main weapon systems are offline for repairs. We've got a few hours before we can go back to full combat capacity." Raymond nodded, running a hand through his hair. "Get the repairs underway immediately. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. This fight isn't over yet." The crew went to work, and Raymond turned his attention to the comms officer. "Get me a line to Earth Command. I need to report in." As the communications officer worked quickly, Raymond's mind wandered back to the invaders. They were no ordinary enemies. Their ships were enormous. their weapons devastating, and their tactics ruthless. Yet, despite everything, they had been forced to retreat. It was a victory, yes, but it came with a chilling realization. These invaders were not just another threat. They were a warning that the universe, and everything humanity had fought for, was now in danger. "Captain," the comms officer spoke up, "Earth Command is ready for your transmission." Raymond walked over to the communications terminal, his expression hardening. As the screen flickered to life, the face of a stern-looking officer appeared on the display. "Captain Raymond, report your status," the officer commanded. Raymond took a deep breath. "We've successfully repelled the invader fleet, but it's not over. We're damaged, but the ship is operational. We've taken out a significant portion of their forces, but we're expecting retaliation. Their fleet is much larger than we anticipated, and this victory has only intensified their desire for vengeance." The officer nodded, though his expression remained grim. "Understood, Captain. We're analyzing the situation on our end. But be warned, this is just the tip of the iceberg. You may have defeated this fleet, but there are more forces moving in from various sectors. The invaders are regrouping, and they'll come back stronger." Raymond's heart sank. The battle for Earth had only just begun. The invaders might have been pushed back, but their thirst for revenge would not be easily quenched. "I'm ready for them, sir. We'll stand our ground." The officer's gaze softened slightly. "Good. Keep your crew safe, Captain. Earth is counting on you." The transmission ended, and Raymond turned to face his officers. The room fell silent, the weight of the situation settling over them like a storm cloud. The first battle had been won, but it felt like a hollow victory. The human warship had proven its might, but the true test was yet to come. They had no idea what lay ahead, or how much the invaders would be willing to sacrifice to destroy them. "Prepare for a counteroffensive," Raymond ordered. "They'll be coming for us, and when they do, we'll be ready. The galaxy will know that Earth is not to be underestimated." As the crew worked, Raymond stared out into the stars once more. The space that had once seemed so vast and welcoming now felt like a battleground, a cold, unforgiving place where enemies could appear at any moment. The peaceful universe Earth had once known was changing, and Raymond knew that humanity's greatest test was just beginning. The sound of footsteps echoed down the long corridor of the warship. Lieutenant Harris, one of the ship's veteran soldiers, walked up to Raymond, his face lined with exhaustion. "Captain, you should get some rest. We got a long road ahead." Raymond didn't turn to look at him, but the words were enough to settle in his mind. "I'll sleep when this war is over. Until then, we fight." The lieutenant hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "We're all with you, Captain. Whatever happens, we'll stand by you." Raymond finally turned to meet the lieutenant's eyes. "I know, and that's what makes humanity dangerous. We don't give up." As the crew continued their work, Raymond's thoughts turned once again to the invaders. They had shown their strength, but they had underestimated Earth. The warship may have been ancient, but it was a symbol of humanity's determination, a determination that, once awakened, could not be stopped. The invaders would learn that the hard way. With a final look at the dark expanse outside, Captain Raymond turned to his crew. "Let's get ready. We're not done yet." The human warship drifted silently in the cold expanse of space, its damaged hull now slowly being repaired by the hardworking crew. The eerie silence that surrounded them was palpable, broken only by the hum of machinery and the occasional exchange between officers. Captain Raymond stood at the command center, his gaze fixed on the stars. Every passing moment only increased the weight of his thoughts. Despite their victory, the galaxy felt darker, more dangerous than it ever had before. "Captain," Lieutenant Harris called from the observation deck, his voice tight with urgency, "there's something you need to see." Raymond nodded and followed the lieutenant down the long hallway, the crew's movements as disciplined as ever. As they reached the observation deck, Raymond's eyes were drawn to the vast expanse of space. But it wasn't the stars that captured his attention. A new fleet had emerged. This time, it was not a single group of invaders, but several fleets, their ships massive and ominous. "How long until they reach our position?" Raymond asked, his voice barely above a whisper. 2 hours, maybe less, Harris replied. "They're moving fast, Captain. We don't have much time." Raymond's mind raced. 2 hours wasn't enough time to prepare the warship, let alone rally Earth's forces, but he knew what had to be done. Set course for Earth. We need to warn them now. As the warship began to turn, Raymond felt a surge of determination within him. The invaders may have underestimated humanity once, but they wouldn't make the same mistake again. Earth had stood alone in the face of threats before, but this time, it wasn't just Earth they had to worry about. It was the might of humanity, united in the face of a common enemy. Back on Earth, the governments of every nation had received the message from Captain Raymond. Earth was on high alert, and the population, once peaceful and focused on exploration, was now being thrust into an age of defense. Raymond knew that the coming storm would be a test of humanity's strength, but what worried him more was the knowledge that the invaders had learned from their past mistakes. "They'll come for us with everything they have," Raymond murmured to himself, "and they'll stop at nothing to make sure we're finished." Back on Earth, the global leaders gathered in the newly formed United Earth Defense Council. The room was filled with tension, with ministers and generals exchanging glances that betrayed their concern. There was a palpable sense of urgency. "We don't have the luxury of time," the council's leader, General Walker, stated. "The fleets are assembling faster than we anticipated. Captain Raymond is already on his way back, but we need to start coordinating our defenses now. The future of Earth depends on it." "We have the resources to build a defense fleet," another leader interjected. "But will it be enough? The invaders are clearly stronger than we thought." "The warship we've been building, the Titan," General Walker said, a hint of confidence in his voice, "will be ready in less than 24 hours. It's our best chance at turning the tide. But we need everyone working together. Earth's survival hinges on this." Back on the warship, Raymond continued to monitor the incoming fleets. The enemy had clearly made their decision. They were coming. And they weren't coming alone. "We've got company," the sensor officer reported. "Multiple unidentified ships entering the system. It looks like they're trying to cut off our escape route." Raymond clenched his jaw, his fists tightening at his sides. They weren't just here to conquer Earth. They were here to wipe humanity from the face of the galaxy. "Prepare for battle," Raymond ordered, his voice steady but tinged with the edge of determination. "We're not running from this fight. We're going to stand and fight, no matter what." The crew immediately sprang into action. The engines roared to life as the warship's weapon systems powered up. The hum of the ship seemed to echo throughout the metal halls as the crew braced themselves for the worst. Each officer and soldier had their eyes focused on the task ahead, knowing that their survival depended on their ability to act quickly and decisively. Raymond turned back to the viewports, his gaze hardening. He could see the invader ships now, massive, imposing, and more terrifying than he had ever imagined. But Earth was not a planet that folded under pressure. It was a world forged in the fires of adversity, and this time, humanity would prove that it could not be crushed by any invader. The enemy fleet was enormous, but Captain Raymond had something they didn't: human ingenuity, the ability to adapt, and a sheer will to survive that no other species had ever experienced. The invaders had made their move, and now Earth would make its stand. The countdown had begun, and the storm was almost upon them. "We may not be ready, but we have no choice," Raymond said softly to himself. "Earth will fight, and Earth will win." As the battle lines were drawn and the human warship prepared for the clash of titanic forces, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Would Earth rise to the occasion, or would this be the final chapter for humanity? The storm was approaching, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The air was thick with tension as the warship hurtled through the void. approaching the enemy fleet that had already begun to encircle Earth. Captain Raymond's hands gripped the cold metal of the command chair, his eyes fixed on the view screen. The countdown to battle had begun, but his mind was far from calm. Every decision from here on would determine not just the fate of the warship or Earth, but the survival of humanity itself. "We have to hold them off," Raymond muttered under his breath, just long enough for the Titan to be ready. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted his thoughts, "the enemy fleet is sending us a transmission." Raymond straightened. "Put it through." The screen flickered, and an image of an imposing alien warlord appeared. His skin was a dark, unyielding gray, and his eyes glowed with an unnatural light. His presence radiated a chilling sense of power. "You are outmatched." The alien leader's voice was deep, almost mocking. "Surrender now, and we will make your death swift. Resist, and you will suffer a fate worse than death." Raymond's gaze remained unflinching. He could see the alien's arrogance in his posture, in the way he leaned toward the screen. These invaders had never encountered humanity at full strength. "Surrender is not an option," Raymond replied firmly. "We'll fight until the last man stands." The alien warlord smiled. "Then you choose your destruction. We shall see if your defiance can save you." With a cold flick of the wrist, the transmission ended, and the screen went dark. Raymond turned to his crew, his voice low but resolute. "Prepare yourselves. This is just the beginning." The hum of the warship's weapons powering up filled the air. The crew's movements were swift, coordinated, and efficient. They knew what was at stake. The future of their species rested on their ability to fight, adapt, and outsmart their enemies. They had no other choice but to succeed. "Enemy ships closing in," the sensor officer reported, a note of urgency creeping into his voice. "They're launching missiles. We've got incoming fire. Brace for impact," Raymond shouted, as the entire crew scrambled into action. The warship shook violently as enemy missiles slammed into its shields. The force of the impact sent shockwaves through the ship, but the human-built defenses held strong. For now. "Shield holding at 65%, reported the tactical officer. "We're taking heavy damage to the starboard side." "Return fire," Raymond commanded, his eyes narrowing as he watched the enemy ships get closer. "All weapons, target their forward ships. Take out their lead vessel first. It's the biggest threat." The crew responded immediately, their fingers flying across consoles, targeting the alien ships with precision. A barrage of plasma and kinetic projectiles shot out from the warship, streaking through space toward the enemy. The first few shots missed, but the human warship's firepower soon found its mark. An explosion rocked the lead alien vessel, sending debris scattering through space. The crew let out a collective cheer, but Raymond knew this was just the beginning. The enemy was relentless. "We've got more on our tail," the communications officer warned. "They've deployed fighters, swarming in from all sides." "Activate point defense turrets. Don't let them get too close," Raymond ordered. The warship's defensive weapons fired, scattering enemy fighters with brilliant flashes of light. But there were too many. The alien forces were vast, and their numbers overwhelmed the human ship. "Captain," the sensor officer called out urgently, "the Titan has entered orbit. It's on its way." Raymond's heart raced. The Titan, Earth's last line of defense, was finally in position. The warship had been the last hope, a weapon built with the combined strength and knowledge of humanity's best minds. But even with its advanced capabilities, there was no guarantee it could turn the tide of battle. The human warship had already sustained significant damage. "We need to buy them time," Raymond said grimly. "Keep the enemy off us for as long as possible. We can't let the Titan face this alone." The warship's crew pushed themselves beyond their limits, engaging the enemy with everything they had. The massive warship fired its weapons in rapid succession, each shot landing with deadly accuracy. Yet, despite the damage it was inflicting, the enemy's forces kept coming. "All fighters have been launched," reported Lieutenant Harris. "They're engaging the enemy on all fronts." Raymond nodded, his mind racing through the battle plans. This was their moment to prove that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. The battle was a fight not just for survival, but for the legacy of mankind. Would they survive this onslaught, or would Earth become another conquered world, erased from the galaxy's memory? "All hands, brace for the final push," Raymond shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We're going to show them what it means to face Earth's wrath." With the Titan's arrival, the fight was far from over. The battle for Earth's survival was escalating. What would happen next would set the course for the entire galaxy, and humanity was determined to make its stand. The galaxy had never witnessed anything like this before, and it wouldn't soon forget the name of Earth. The warship shook again, this time more violently than before. The hull groaned under the pressure of incoming fire. Sparks flew across the command center as systems flickered and alarms blared. It was a sight of destruction, one that would make any enemy falter in fear. Captain Raymond gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles white. "Report," he barked. "We've lost shields on the starboard side, sir," the tactical officer cried. "Hull integrity at 40%. We're taking damage, but we're still fighting." Raymond's gaze turned to the view screen, which now displayed a chaotic battle. The enemy fleet surrounded the human warship, overwhelming them with numbers, but not with willpower. The Titan, Earth's massive final defense vessel, was now in orbit, but it was taking time to deploy its full weaponry. "We have to hold on," Raymond muttered. "We're almost there." Just as the human warship seemed ready to break, a massive roar erupted from the distance. The Titan was charging its main cannon. The very fabric of space seemed to warp as the colossal ship unleashed its weapon. A beam of pure, destructive energy cut through space, splitting the darkness in a flash of light. The alien ships closest to the beam evaporated in a violent explosion, their remains scattering like dust in the wind. But that was only the beginning. The remaining alien forces, realizing they were facing an unimaginable power, began to retreat. The Titan's firepower was unmatched, but the damage had already been done to the human fleet. Captain Raymond knew that the battle was far from over, but with the Titan's arrival, the tide had shifted. "Look at them," said Lieutenant Harris, pointing at the view screen. "They're retreating. They're scared." Raymond nodded. "Good. Let them run. But we're not finished yet." With a renewed sense of purpose, the human fleet, bolstered by the Titan, began to systematically dismantle the remaining alien forces. The enemy, now stunned by Earth's relentless fury, stood no chance. The powerful weapons of the Titan struck with precision, vaporizing alien vessels that once seemed invincible. As the last of the alien ships exploded in a flash of light, the crew let out a collective sigh of relief. They had done it. Earth had won. The galaxy would never forget what had just transpired. The story of the human warship, its defiance, its determination, and the wrath of Earth would be told for generations to come. Captain Raymond stood, staring at the stars. The victory had been hard-won, and though Earth had triumphed, the battle had only reminded him of one undeniable truth. Humanity was capable of things even the strongest empires in the galaxy had never imagined. But for now, Earth was safe. The Titan slowly moved away, its colossal silhouette against the backdrop of a peaceful Earth. For the first time in a long while, the crew could finally rest. The war was over, but their legacy had only just begun. Raymond turned to his crew. "We've shown them that Earth is not a place to be trifled with. Now we rebuild and prepare. The galaxy knows our name now, and they will never forget what happened here." A smile spread across his face, and the crew nodded in agreement. The battle was won. But for humanity, the war was just the beginning. The galaxy would soon learn to fear Earth's wrath. And so, Earth's story continued, a story of defiance, strength, and the power of humanity to rise against all odds. The message was clear: never underestimate Earth, for when pushed to the limit, humanity would rise to the occasion in ways no one could have predicted. The universe had been shaken, and it was all because one human, one life, sparked a response that would echo throughout the galaxy forever.